What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're going to take a look at the controversial Apocalypse Now, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Now, this movie is controversial because many people question the accuracy of this movie. Now, this movie takes place during the Vietnam War, and a lot of people say that, oh, this movie is complete bullshit because half the stuff that this movie shows never happened in the Vietnam War. Well, I am not a historian, and I'm not going to talk about the historical accuracy of Apocalypse Now and how it handled the Vietnam War and how it handled the Vietnam War. This is a stylized version of, this is Francis Coppola's stylized version of events during the Vietnam War as he's telling his story with an Apocalypse Now. So I'm going to judge this movie based on the story contents alone. So, how does Apocalypse hold up as its own standalone story? I really like this movie. I think this movie is really strong with strong performances and a very interesting and intriguing story. The overall skeleton of this story is the character of Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, is tasked to hunt and kill rogue army colonel known as Willard Kurtz, as Walter Kurtz. In this movie, Colonel Kurtz. Colonel Kurtz went rogue. He is now presented himself as a godlike figure, and he's completely lost his mind and gone insane. And Kurtz is played beautifully by Marlon Brando. Willard's mission is to hunt down and kill this man. That is the overall basic plot line of this movie. Now let's talk about what happens within this movie. I think Francis Ford Coppola did a great job at telling a stylized, telling his stylized version of Vietnam. I think this movie is really striking from a cinematography standpoint. This movie looks absolutely beautiful. It is shot beautifully. I love the use of. I like Francis Ford Coppola really did a good job at making Vietnam come to life. At really making this movie just have a beautiful, stylized version of Vietnam. Looks fantastic. The special effects in this movie are great. Some of the action sequences are actually done really well, and I like them a lot. And you also have a strong cast that makes this movie come to life. I already talked Martin Sheen as Willard, as Captain Willard. I like Martin Sheen in the role. I think he does a fantastic job at anchoring this movie as Captain Willard. I think he holds his ground really well, and I like his interactions with a lot of the characters in this movie, particularly the the characters that are with Willard as he's on his trek through the jungles of Vietnam to get to Colonel Stewart, to get to Colonel Kurtz. You have the character of Chef, Chief, Lance, Mr. Clean, and these are all the characters that are on the boat with Willard as they're trekking through the jungles. And now, throughout the course of this movie, some of these characters get knocked off. You know, the character of Mr. Clean gets knocked off. The character of the chef character gets chief character gets knocked off. Chef gets knocked off in a gruesome way when Colonel Kurtz actually kills him, but he kills him off screen, which is what I like, because while Willard's being held captive, Colonel Kurtz pretty much shows him the chef's dismembered head, and it's really just a visceral, striking, just graphic scene. And I think Francis Ford Coppola did a great job at not showing Kurtz do the deed and just seeing the aftermath. It's just all the more scary, and it really adds to that mysticism that this movie surrounds Colonel Kurtz all throughout its runtime. We don't see Colonel Kurtz until like the last portion of the movie, like the last 40 minutes or so. And Coppola did a fantastic job at building up his legend, at building Kurtz up as like this mythical presence. And when we finally get to Colonel Kurtz, we see that. And Marlon Brando's performance as Colonel Kurtz is brilliant and chilling all at once. Brando is fantastic as Colonel Kurtz. But that's not to take away from the supporting cast as well. I already mentioned, the characters. This movie has a young Lawrence Fishburne, and I thought he did well for himself. Frederick Forrest as the chef character is where a lot of the humor comes from, because the chef character is pretty much a petrified fool. The character of Lance is like this surfer dude, surfs up, bro, who also slips some acid and he looks completely just spaced out all the time. This movie also builds a little bit of tension between Willard and the chief character, which I like how it builds up, because Willard's the captain, but the chief is the chief's company that he's with. So they have a little power struggle going on, which is actually nice and really understated. And you have other characters in the movie who are great. You have Robert Duvall, who plays the character of Kilgore, who is like this who is like this army colonel surfing fanatic, how everyone in his company are just surfers. And Willard's interaction with Kilgore is some funny stuff too, because Robert Duvall to me is straight out of the army. The man looks like he could be an army colonel, and Duvall has some of the best moments and some of the best lines in this movie, like "Charlie don't surf," and I love the smell of napalm in the morning, and how whenever he goes to war, he plays Wagner. You hear "Rod of the Valkyries." It's just goofy, over the top, just stuff that the Kilgore character does. And like I said, some of the good humorous moments comes not only from the chef character, but from the Kilgore character as well. And then when you get to the Colonel Kurtz character, that's where the horrific and horror stuff comes in. So I like how Coppola really balances out the comedy and the horror, but this movie still has that same somber tone all throughout. It never loses focus, and I can appreciate that because some filmmakers can't balance out its humor with its horror. But Apocalypse Now to me was that perfect counterbalance. So yeah, I think Apocalypse Now. There's more to talk about with this movie, but I just gave you my broad strokes and what I really enjoyed and what I really liked about it, which is why I'm going to give Apocalypse Now a perfect 10. I think this movie is great. Take away the historical inaccuracies. As a movie to itself, this movie is damn good, and I like Coppola's stylized version of Vietnam, and I love the performances in this movie as well. They're all hypnotic and captivating, and the story is very intriguing as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Apocalypse Now. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.